Okay, not yet. No. It takes a minute to prepare. Okay.
Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Note that all of council is present here in the chambers except for Councillor Chasson. Councillor Chasson, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. And also on the line, do we have Alex?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And Manuela?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. And Kevin? Okay. Just remind those of you that are on the line, if you can mute your phone, and when you wish to speak, then just unmute. Call for any disclosures of pecuniary interests. Hearing none, move to the approval of the agenda. If I can have a mover. Moved by Mitch. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Under delegations, presentations, we have nothing. Adoption of minutes from Tuesday, October 6th. I have a mover. Moved by Robert. All in favor? Carried. Business arising out of the previous meeting, update regarding Halloween, and an update from MMCC.
Okay, so if I may, Mr. Mayor, I attended the last meeting of the Algoma District meeting with Algoma Public Health, and they provided us with a Halloween messaging that the municipality and other communities can use with respect to Halloween. On their website, they have posted a couple of posters that people can put up into their windows. So this poster here, it just states, treaters, we're open for, I think it says booness. And the second signs that they have available is, sorry, no candy here. We'll treat you next year. So the residents of Wawa were encouraged to post these signs in the window so that little trick-or-treaters know whether the home is open for trick-or-treaters. Some of the guidelines that they have indicated is that kids are still asked to wear their masks, so don't wear a Halloween mask and try to wear your mask for COVID, because you'll have a very difficult time breathing. If you're not feeling well, even if your symptoms are mild or minor in nature, please do not go out. Ensure that you practice the physical distancing. Try to keep at least 2 meters apart. That when you stop at homes, please be sure to wait for other trick-or-treaters. Don't gather up at the door together. If you're going out trick-or-treating, please go out with members of your own household. Stick close to home. Visit homes that are basically within your bubble or close friends. Don't be wandering throughout the entire community. If possible, parents, please drive your children or arrange for the pre-visits. Be sure to bring along your hand sanitizer and sanitize often. Avoid touching your face when returning home, and wash your hands. For those that are giving out treats, don't hand out candies if you're not feeling well. If you don't feel comfortable having the trick-or-treaters, consider turning off your lights or post one of the posters in your window. If you wish to provide treats, instead of offering a shared bowl, handout in sealed prepackaged packaging, or you can place it on a table outside your home. Be sure you wear a mask when you're interacting with the little trick-or-treaters. Another option that you have is that you can place the candy at the end of your driveway at your doorstep to avoid encounters with the trick-or-treaters. Other suggestions are that you can place the candy on a baking sheet, or use tongs, or maybe get a little bit creative and create a little slide. You can slide the candy down to the trick-or-treaters. If possible, stand outside to hand out the candies rather than having the children banging on your door or ringing your doorbells. And that's pretty well it that they've suggested. This information is available on the Algoma Public Health website, and we also have posted it on our Facebook page. Unfortunately, we've had problems with the municipal website and it's currently down, so we're unable to post it there, but it is available again on Algoma Public Health website. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And is someone going to give the update for MMCC?
Sure. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Alex.
Very good. So the first week of the community center reopening went very well. We had every day of the week go as of yesterday, which was the Monday we were missing because of the holiday. So each youth user group has now gone through the rink at least once, if not twice or three times. Too many issues. We've had a couple minor kinks to work out, but overall the system and the plan has been working quite well. User groups have given us some constructive feedback, but overall the feedback has been quite positive, with a couple things that we were able to rectify fairly quickly. So right now what we're looking at is our second week, and in that second week, we as a staff are evaluating how the first week went, seeing where we can make things more efficient, talking about how we're going to open things up further. We've also been working quite a lot on our seniors programming to develop a lot of the procedures that are going to be needed to keep the community safe as we integrate another. And a lot of that is as well based on what we've learned this first week and going into the second week now. So we're looking at opening up seniors programming fairly soon, likely within the next 1 to 2 weeks, as long as we can get schedules out and everything to a point that we're happy with, which we're getting closer to. And then after that, we're continuing down the same train. So after we get our seniors programming worked out, we're going to work for another 2 weeks to make sure that that's all being integrated successfully, iron out some of the kinks there, and then move on to adult programming. So overall, I'm pretty happy with things. On the revenue side of things, I'll give council a forecast again, like we talked about during the presentation of the reopening plan. But on the youth side of things, that revenue has met the forecast. So now we're just looking at how we're going to meet that on the senior side of things to make everything work. So overall, pretty positive, fairly good response from the community, and we're happy to move forward into opening up some more programming.
Thank you, Alex. Certainly, I know the word around the community is that the kids are extremely happy that they're back on the ice, and the parents are happy that the children have that outlet to get out and get some physical activity. So thank you to you and your staff. Great job making sure that we can open and operate in a safe manner. And I'm sure the seniors and the rest of the community is looking forward to participating in activities as well. Item 7, new business, 7.1, draft policy, the code of conduct for employees. You received an updated copy today. We really want to emphasize that we take a very thorough look at this. It's an extremely important policy. If you have any, suggestions, or even if you wish to get an explanation, sometimes when you look at a policy, you say, well, how is this going to play out? So it's important to understand that process of your policy, that our responsibilities, and there are quite a number of situations there, and sometimes it makes it a little easier if you can see who the people are that would be involved in dealing with the policy as it is being explained and operated within the community. Did anyone want to make a particular comment about it? Kathy or Maury?
Actually, yes, Mr. Mayor, I would
Yes,
like to
please,
speak to
go
it very briefly. So I just want everybody to know that this is the very first draft of this policy for the code of conduct for employees. This policy would be applicable to all full-time, regular, part-time, seasonal employees, as well as the Wawa Volunteer Fire Department and other volunteers within the municipality. So this policy addresses all areas, including confidential information, conflict of interest, employee conduct, ethical behavior, gifts and benefits, pecuniary interests, political activity. It outlines the expectations of employee conduct, explains what is a conflict of interest, and it goes into a little bit more detail on samples of what could be considered a conflict of interest, whether it's a direct or indirect conflict, how to deal with confidential information, and it describes the types of information that care has to be taken when exercising the release of information. For example, information with respect to personnel matters would not be released to the public or to others. There's a section in here to address public relations and press releases. Either directors are able to provide some press releases under the direction of the CAO, but generally it would fall to the CAO. The use of municipal property, what is permitted, what is not. Concurrent employment, gifts and benefits. If an individual was provided with a gift or payments or tickets of some sort, it is to be returned to the person who has provided it to you and explain why it cannot be accepted. There's a section in here to address the use of alcohol, recreational cannabis, and illegal drug use. It outlines the responsibilities of the management staff, the responsibilities of the employees. There is a complete section under number 6 with respect to the complaint procedure, that there'll be no retaliation or reprisal against an individual who files a complaint, that files a complaint under this policy. We will try to undertake remedial action prior to undergoing a complete investigation if we can. If we cannot, then we will go through a complete investigation. Inserted a limitation period, so if there's the event occurred beyond 30 days that the complaint may not be considered, but that's under the decision of the CAO. It talks a little bit about discipline for non-compliance and how it will be dealt with. All staff would be required to sign an acknowledgement and agreement form that they read and understand this policy and that they will adhere to the terms. And then the appendices outline the complaints procedure and guideline, resolution guideline, how we will deal with formal complaints, complaints that are deemed frivolous or vexatious, and the importance of maintaining confidentiality throughout the entire process. And then we actually have under Appendix C, the complaint form. And with the complaint form, if a person's complaint is quite lengthy, then there's a sample schedule attached to that complaint form, which would be an affidavit to the complaint so that person could attach additional pages. So what I'm asking of council today is to please read the material. It's very, very draft. Keep that in mind. And I would ask that if you could provide either Maury or myself with your comments, and I'm hoping by maybe October 31st, so that we can incorporate these recommendations. We also have a team to look at this policy as well, and they just recently received it as of I want to say it was Friday. So they haven't had much time to look at it either, but we're hoping to have this policy adopted prior to Christmas, so by December. So the timeline is getting short. It only gives us about a month, but we would bring back a second draft prior to the approval in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Are there any questions for Kathy at this point? Yes, go ahead.
Kathy, I had a very small business, so I understand some of this, but is there anything we could read that could help us with this, like the labor law or something? Like, I'm not sure exactly how to proceed at changing anything. Like, is it basically if I see something that I don't understand or don't like, I just tell you?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay, I think I got it.
And this policy is very similar to a policy that we recently adopted for the code of conduct for council and board members.
Is it changed much from before?
Yes, it has, significantly. We inserted a timeline. We address the conflict of interest, the issue of gifts, benefits, the use of municipal equipment, a number of items, yeah. There's a lot more detail in this policy.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving to item 7.2, the procurement policy. Manuela, did you wish to speak to this prior to any discussion?
Yeah, I can give just a brief little review of it. So this
Thank
policy
you.
was last reviewed, I believe, in 2010. When I looked at it, I looked at the spending limits, the methods of procurement or purchase, some methods being by credit card, petty cash, quote, request for tender, request for proposal, and under which scenarios or under which spending limit we would choose the different methods by which to purchase items for the municipality. The policy addresses and it defines specifically as it applies to this policy what a conflict of interest is in purchasing, what would constitute an emergency purchase and how you would go about making that. It talks about exemptions to the policy and how they should be addressed and authorized. What else does it do? It's indicated that in reviewing this, I've indicated or discovered the need that we really need to update both the tendering policy and the credit card policy. They're also outdated and haven't been looked at for, I believe, also since 2010. The other thing I discovered is we have no electronic fund transfer policy at all. And to me, that's a very important one because it's the transfer of money either from another entity to us or from us to another business or municipality. So there needs to be good controls and policy put in place to manage the risk of this type of procedure. So that'll be next probably on my list of things to do is to address those three policies. And I've also changed the reviews. There wasn't really a specified review date for this policy. So I've changed that so it would coincide with each term of council. So that as part of the review, it would provide the new council coming in an update or a training session on this policy. So if there's no questions, that really sums it up.
We have a question from Councillor Tate.
Question I have is, should the asset management be tied into a procurement? The reason why I'm saying that,
As it,
I've used
oh,
the example.
sorry, it's hard to hear you.
The reason why I say it is I want to just use the example that in the past, instead of buying a vehicle every 3 years, when they're buying the vehicles, like about 8 of them at one time. And that's procurement. And I'm just wondering if that should be tied into this policy.
So
somehow.
asset management is definitely tied into procurement. And I did add a clause in here saying that I'm trying to remember it. It's right close to the end. That the tangible capital asset policy, which is linked to the asset management plan, should be consulted, especially when determining whether the purchase is operational or capital in nature. And And also, it's going to appoint a person either to the request for tendering or the request for proposal process or the quote process based on the spending limit of the director or the person that's purchasing or the item that's being purchased. So there'll be those rules that surround that. So yes, everything does point back to the asset management plan if it's a larger purchase.
Thank you.
I think it's also important as a council where we give approval ahead of time to some of the capital projects, and it gives staff the opportunity to get out into the public and make those requests for input on those items. Because I think although we have a clause to deal with emergency expenditures, it's something that you don't want to be using too frequently, and having the additional time certainly helps. That's an important part of how we do business as a municipality.
That's a quick question.
Yes, we have a question from Councillor Mitch.
Manuela, again, is there a lot of changes in this from the previous one? And I'm ashamed to say I never read the previous one.
There are changes. There's changes as to what's been exempt, how we treat tendering, how we treat capital assets. There's some better definitions. For me, the big change is that it is linked to the asset management plan. So and part of the recommendation is that sorry, I'm going to just look at it here, that the tangible capital asset policy be looked at as well and reviewed, which is directly linked with the asset management plan. So that's the biggest change, because going forward, we've developed this great plan and we're making it better all the time. And it's important that we make the correct decisions and that we have policies to guide us in our purchases, as sometimes it's confusing as to what's an asset and what's not. So I think I really concentrated mostly. The biggest change here, I think, was it became less of a procedure and more of a policy. The previous policy had a lot of procedure in it. I wrote the procedure out of it. That belongs in a directive or procedures manual.
Thanks, Manuela.
Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel. Moving to item 7.3, the Northeast Superior Regional Freedom to Grow Regional Marketing Campaign, Rural Economic Development Program. We had a discussion on this at our mayor's meeting last week. It deals with two extremely important topics that are tied in. The workforce, extremely important, but it also had a great discussion on housing as well, which ties into, you know, which one do you need first? We want to attract more people to our communities. There's a great demand for them, our local mines and other businesses. Give us just a bit more. I know the EDOs have been working on this as well in the region.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor. And as you stated, this is a group of regional economic development officers that have been meeting regularly for years. And one of the proposals that is being put forward to council is something that's been on their agenda as part of the regional strategic plan and as part, of course, of WAWA's plan, and that is to attract new labor force, new residents to the community. And so this proposal is taking advantage of the funding available through the Ontario Municipal Rural Affairs Ministry through what's called the RED program, the Rural Economic Development Program. Opportunity to apply to that program through the regional EDO group for $90,000 in funding to do a study, and to do more than a study, but take actually concrete actions to move forward with some targeted marketing to specific labor forces that we need in the community, whether it be mining, forestry, or our service sector. Part of the plan moving forward would be some marketing materials using the Freedom to Grow tagline, a website, and other new types of marketing to a very targeted sector of the population in Canada, and seeing how that works. So the request to council tonight is to be part of the regional mayors and communities who felt this was an excellent program, with each community being asked to support and be part of this program by supporting a financial contribution of $3,750. So the motion to council later on the agenda is for that amount of funding to go towards the total project cost of $90,000. The mayor and I heard the presentation from Melanie Pino on behalf of the Regional Mayors Group. It was a very impressive presentation, and we support that council take part of this initiative.
Thank you, Maureen. Are there any questions for Maureen?
No, just one question is, I know it's just the freedom to go. How can we grow in Wawa when we don't own any of the lots?
It's a great question, Councillor Tate, and as we know, the community has some barriers to residential development, but we also have opportunities. And so at the next council meeting, I'll be bringing forward through the regional EDO group, there's opportunity to look at housing, because the same housing needs in Wawa, maybe not the same barriers, but the same housing needs we heard at the regional mayors group are being experienced in Manitouwadge, being experienced in Dubreuilville, in White River. And so we're all experiencing the challenge of having the housing supply meet the demand, particularly as new mines come on board, like we know Argonaut Gold will be coming on board. So in the municipality of Wawa, there's approximately 100 vacant lots, some of which are restricted from the municipality developing, but there are other opportunities for private vacant lot owners to look at developing housing. So my answer is that today I don't have the answer. And there's a multitude of groups, including the Economic Development Corporation of Wawa, working with a developer out of Winnipeg, and there's other opportunities being looked at by private landowners to try to fill some of that gap. But I will be bringing a proposal forward to council at the next council meeting, talking about an effort of the regional group to do some actions and studies around how can we resolve this ongoing and very difficult matter, because it is chicken and egg situation here.
So basically, Lori, we are on top of everything that's coming up. Like there's so many, like Argonaut going, there's 300 men there and everything else. Like we do have opportunities to accommodate these people.
The answer is hopefully yes. There are activities going on in the community that include, as you may witness, some private developers continuing to develop properties, like the Lakeview Hotel, bringing new residents online. The owners of the former Big Bird are working on renovating that property and intend to have that renovated over the winter. And so some new housing units would be available to the market. And as we know, we're anxious to see the seniors housing complex also provide at least 10 units, but it could mean that 10 other homes or apartments become available. So my answer is we're on top of it, I think, to the best of our ability that we can be as a public municipality that must take care of all of our resources, financial, otherwise. But we have a little bit more to go in terms of ensuring that we increase our communications with the companies and the industries around us to make sure that if there are opportunities, that we're taking full advantage of those opportunities to see Wawa benefit, whether it be through economic development or other benefits that they accrue to Wawa as all these mines continue to expand and develop. So my answer to you on that is we need to maybe spend a little more time to get on top of everything that's happening, because there's so much happening at once.
It's an exciting time, and it's really encouraging to hear that we have started all this. Thanks, Lori.
There are quite a number of opportunities for development in Wawa with regards to housing. We know there's private investor that we have to ensure that those lots are occupied first. But if there's a great demand, we have a subdivision that's laid out. It's not serviced. That's a discussion I think we will have at council sometime. Should we have interest in that area? Does council want to service it? Probably not. We want to work with a developer and provide the land at very reasonable price so that they develop it. And we end up with, the taxation from the buildings that go in those lots. What's the formal name of that area? Is it Beck Street Development?
We referred to it as Churchill Phase 5, as Churchill was used as a name to develop all the housing on Superior and Regina. It was done in stages. I'm not sure, but it was called Churchill 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that area, we refer to it as Churchill Phase 5, but it's the area in between Beck, Tamarack, and Hillcrest and Regina. There's all that vacant land is owned by the municipality, and there's an approved plan of subdivision on it for over about 100 lots.
That doesn't quite go all the way to Government Road, but it's a large area, and it's on the map in my office. Everybody wants to look at it. It's quite significant, and we are certainly open for business and willing to accommodate the local minds. Because lately we're getting into a conversation where perhaps some of the mines would like to see more of their employees living in the communities around the mines, White River, Dubreuilville, Wawa, and are accommodating that through incentives. So I think something like that for a developer, knowing that there would be that market, we're getting more people talking to us, and we'll certainly listen, and we'll get back to council as a whole when something formal is brought to us.
It's exciting.
It is very exciting. Move to item 7.4, the golf course license to occupy. It's already been 10 years. The initial bylaw, right? Was at a 10-year limit that has expired. We have 1 year in which to renew it. So Maury has worked with the golf club executive people, and there's a few changes recommended in what will come forward to council. Do you wish to speak to those?
You summarized it perfectly, and I would just add that this license to occupy is like a lease. We're leasing back to the golf club the facilities to operate the golf course. It would be for another 10 years, so it'd be till November 2030. Basically, all the major components of this license to occupy are exactly the same as the one approved by council 10 years ago. There are some provisos that should the golf club ever have the money and the drive that council agreed, as it did 10 years ago, that the golf club could always buy the property back from the municipality, and there's a clause around that giving them the first opportunity to buy it back if that ever happened. Basically, everything's the same except two clauses, I think it was 12, just to change a note on the wording around the supply of water. In the past, the golf club had the benefit of a bulk rate charge of water to the club. They would use that water at times for the clubhouse, of course, and for some initial startup phases of irrigation systems. And then they would switch to an approved permit from the M&R to use water from the Magpie River. So they will have to switch to the new water charges that set out to Municipal Council's water bylaw and the schedule of fees. The impact to the golf club of that is something I hope will be more positive as an impact on the club than a negative. The difficulty at this time is that it came to light recently that the water meter had not been working at the golf club for the last 10 years. We've addressed that and put a new water meter in, but the point here is We don't have readings as an example where we could say under a scenario that last year the golf club used X cubic meters. We don't have that baseline, if it's something that the club is concerned about in the future at the end of the year, I'm sure they can speak to council on the matter, but I don't anticipate just from a review of the information that I have that'll be a negative impact, but this is council's rules around the water meter charges and the scheduled fees of a bylaw. And then number 13 was just, to share with council and, the members of the golf club are all dedicated volunteers who have from time to time to look for support from the municipality when needed, that we have in the past through council provided some assistance when required at an in-kind donation, whether it might be the use of a piece of equipment or someone to come down and help with an emergency repair, that the municipality does again indicate that it may provide in-kind services to the golf club as determined by council through the annual budget process and approved by the CAO, that ultimately we will put an amount in the budget, and if council approves the budget, there's some monies there to provide in-kind services to the golf club, and that would always require the CAO's final approval. And this is an agreement and relationship that's been long-standing with the volunteer nonprofit golf club and the municipality. Otherwise, all the clauses are basically the same as the past. Thank you.
When do you plan to bring this forward for approval and follow?
I got one question, Mr. Mayor Rody, that,
Go ahead, Councillor Chason.
but it has to be back up to 7.3, if I may.
Sure.
Okay, I've got a couple constituents that just ask a question about the Pinewood Drive on that fire at the motel. What's the plans, if there's any plans in place for our municipality to do something with that property to resell it? Is that in our hands now or still in private hands?
It's in private hands. We have spoken to one representative who is not an owner, but he deals with the individuals that do own the property. He has spoken to them about, cleaning up the property, but it's not something that it's not property the municipality owns at this time.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Ruby.
You're welcome, Councillor Chason. The question with regards to the.
Is what? I forgot.
Yeah, when it will be coming forward to council for approval?
I've shared this license to occupy draft with the members of the board of directors of the golf club, and my view would be we would bring this back to council at their next regular meeting, November 3rd, provided there aren't any comments that we can't resolve by then.
Great, thank you. So moving to 7.5, the Vulnerable Persons Registry. Kathy, do you wish to speak to that?
Sure. So recently, the Sault Ste. Marie Vulnerable Persons Registry contacted the municipality and asked if we would like to participate in this program. This program is a free service provided by the Vulnerable Persons Registry, which is overseen by the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center. So what it is, it's a free and confidential service aimed at providing improved safety for vulnerable persons during an emergency or disaster. It is a registry that provides key information to the local emergency management coordinators to ensure that there's safety in a large-scale emergency. So some of the residents in the area would have would register, and they would indicate what type of disability they have. For example, it could be a mobility issue, could be a vision impairment, a hearing impairment, developmental disabilities, mental health conditions, or it could be somebody who requires electricity because of life-sustaining equipment, like oxygen or dialysis. So it would pinpoint what homes have vulnerable persons. The information by the municipality and immediately turned over to the vulnerable persons coordinator in Sault Ste. Marie, and they would input the data into a database, which would be shared with emergency responders only. So we wouldn't see that information. As we receive the applications, we would store them in a secure cabinet, and then they would be gathered and sent off to the coordinator every 2 weeks. It's volunteer only, so we can't force anyone to sign up, but we would strongly encourage residents to sign up for this program. And from what I understand is that the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center later this fall will be taking a very large campaign to promote the program in our community. And it is funded through the local DSAPs, funded by the local DSAPs, and includes communities all in the Algoma district and some of the Sudbury district, with the exceptions of the city of Sudbury, but it does include some of the surrounding area.
How does something get initiated to be able to respond? I recall years ago, and this was something our own personal staff knew, but if you were on in your home, if there was a water interruption, it could become very serious. So they needed to inform the people. So how does the coordinator at the registry, do we automatically let that office know if there's a power interruption, a water interruption, fire, etc.? Who in the community is responsible for making sure that they're contacted?
So that would be the emergency coordinators would have access. So for example, EMS would have access to that information, fire, police, and the municipality would have access to that information. So if we knew that we had to shut off water, we could have our representative that we would select 1 or 2 people that has access to that database and would check to see who in that area may be impacted by that water shutoff, and they would be notified that this would be occurring.
And there's a process to update people in our community that are dealing with EMS related services. Whenever someone new is added to the registry, or there's some kind of
The Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center would update the database, and then it's shared amongst the coordinators for your area or your community only. So we wouldn't have access to other communities, just our local.
Great. Do you have a question?
I could add to that, Kathy. When my husband was on oxygen, I was always worried about the power going out. And I took it upon myself to call the oxygen people and say, what am I going to do when the power goes out if he's on the oxygen that day? And it took quite a while, but they gave me a battery that could last 5 days once it cost a fortune. But like, there's all these little things, the people that are getting dialysis, the people that are getting oxygen, there's all kinds of answers for the people that supply them.
Yes, and this is more intended for a large scale emergency, not the smaller ones, but we do have access to the information. And when you're filing to register under this program, it asks you specifically how long are you able to sustain on your own, and how long before we have to send somebody to your home. So we have those timelines as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And that'll be coming up in the regular meeting in bylaws.
Yes, that's correct.
So there's no in camera, no business arising, obviously, from closed session. Next meeting date is Tuesday, November the 3rd. Do we need a mover to adjourn? Moved by Councillor Tate, all in favor, it's carried. We'll move straight into the regular council meeting. Orders, if you need to change your set the vocab.
Just.
Thank you. We'll call the meeting to order at 7:15. Any disclosure of pecuniary interests? Seeing none, approval of the agenda, we have a resolution.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Tate, resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council scheduled for Tuesday, October 20th be approved as presented.
Any questions? All in favor? It's carried. There's no delegations or presentations, announcements and giving of notice. We have 6 items there. Also like to mention, we've received a few calls concerning our Wawa website. We'd just like the public to know that the website is down. Unfortunately, it was hacked. Municipal staff are working to ensure that the website is back online, and we're hoping to get that done within the next couple of weeks. Also like to announce that the Wawa Waterfront project is complete. It has quite a number of new signs added. There, as you come into Wawa, there are signs out across from Pinewood Drive, signs along Mission Road and Main Street, and then the signage along the walkway is just incredible. It's really pleasant to walk, to stop. Been down there often in the last week or two, talking to tourists who have stopped and have had very positive comments about how nice of a walk it is, and enjoying the scenery and learning about the boreal forest. So hats off to Alex and his staff and the whole community that supported this project. It was something that took a while to get completed, but certainly, you know, we have a beautiful entrance into our community, new roadway, and it leads right down the Wawa Lake. So we certainly encourage people to go down and park and have a nice little walk. You can do the walk along the lake and come back to your car through the main street if you like, whatever, but really, really nice. So thank you very much for that, Alex and staff. Adoption of minutes, we have a resolution.
Moved by Councillor Tate, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the following minutes of the meetings of council be adopted as presented. A, minutes of a public meeting under the Planning Act held on Tuesday, October 6, 2020 is contained on pages 1 and 2, inclusive of the minute book. Minutes of a regular meeting of council held on Tuesday, October 6, 2020 is contained on pages 1 to 6, inclusive of the minute book.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Consent agenda, we have a resolution.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Tate, resolved that the items listed under the consent agenda, items 7.2 to 7.8, be approved as recommended.
All in favor? It's carried. Staff reports, the procurement policy, we have a resolution.
Moved by Councillor Reese, seconded by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby receive staff report MB 2020-04 procurement policy, a copy of which is attached here too.
All in favor? It's carried. It's carried. Thank you. Nothing under business arising. Going to item 10, new business 10.1, approve support for non-broadband as an essential service program.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Reese. Whereas community, social, and economic well-being is dependent on fast, reliable, and affordable broadband connectivity and better cellular coverage, and whereas municipal, provincial, and federal governments, as well as healthcare, education, and other sectors, will continue to depend on the internet to communicate, provide services, and ensure accessibility to information. And whereas digital literacy skills are essential to collaborate, innovate, and compete both regionally and globally, and require appropriate and affordable broadband. And whereas the availability of broadband that is on par with larger urban areas in Canada is in Ontario to achieve economic sustainability and social well-being. And whereas in 2016, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities requested that the internet be designated as an essential service and those efforts undertaken to ensure all municipalities have access to affordable, fast, and reliable broadband. And whereas Phenom agreed that an option to explore would include Starlink program by SpaceX. And whereas the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa believes that low Earth satellite services, or LEO, such as Starlink, are an important tool in combination with other robust services such as fiber optics and fixed wireless access, FWA services. Now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Wawa does hereby agree that broadband is an essential service and that the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, the CRTC, should encourage LEO services and other private ventures to compete with those presently acting in the communication field as they have the private financial ability to move forward, and further that a copy of this resolution be sent to the Federal Minister of Science, Innovation and Economic Development, the Provincial Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, the Provincial Minister of Infrastructure, the Provincial Minister of Energy, Northern Development and Mines, and the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Commission, CRTC, Northeastern MPs and MPPs, and leaders of the opposition parties and the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities.
Thank you. Certainly during this pandemic, as students were at home and trying to follow school programs, broadband was extremely important. In some cases, the children just weren't able to access their lessons and contact with their teachers. So it's extremely important. I saw a news article on national television today about SpaceX and this particular program with Elon Musk with his company. So I think it's worthwhile supporting. The region is working very hard through Melanie Philo on broadband. So it's anything that supports this program to get reliable broadband in our community. It just makes us totally accessible to the rest of the world. It encourages individuals who have a business can move anywhere in Canada and conduct their business, but if you don't have the broadband, they can't. So I'm very happy to support this program. So we have that resolution. I haven't called the question. Are there any other comments? Call the question. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. There's nothing under notice of motion. Bylaws.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, seconded by Councillor Reese. Resolved that the following bylaws be introduced and read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, and that the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding. Bylaw number 3346-20 to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 20th day of October 2020. Bylaw number 3347-20 to authorize the corporation of the municipality of Wawa to enter into a lease agreement with the Chadwick Home Inc. respecting the lease of office space situated at 3 Maple Street, Wawa, Ontario. Bylaw number 3348-20 to authorize the sale of municipal land described as Lot F on Walker Engineering Drawing number A1-2007-32-G1, subject to the reservation of an easement in favor of the municipality over and under Part 6, 1R, 11736 to Willie and Bonnie Smets. And bylaw number 3349-20 to authorize the municipality of Wawa to enter into an agreement with the Sault Ste. Marie Innovation Center, Acorn Information Solutions for the Vulnerable Persons Registry.
Are there any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Going to move into closed session.
Moved by Councillor Reese, seconded by Councillor Hatfield. Resolved that this committee proceed in camera at 7:23 p.m. in order to address the following matters pertaining to a personnel issue, staffing, and its personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill and staff, for participating. We will be going into closed session at this time. Good night.
Thank you.
Tell,
Good night, everybody.
is he not staying for anything?
See you on.
What?
Yeah.
Well, I think under new
Yeah,
rules, he's
under new
allowed.
rules, he is. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if he knows. He said goodbye.
Yeah, I did. Okay.
Welcome back. There is no business arising from the closed session. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, November the 3rd. We have a mover to adjourn.
Moved by Councillor Hatfield, resolved that the meeting be adjourned at 7:46 PM.
All in favor? It's carried. Thank you.
Lori, did I tell you next